Dr. Fauci. I never really had a good Fauci impression. But Dr. Fauci, man. How many mistakes can one person make? You know, there are some people, Fauci, ouchie, I want him to be president. There's a lot of people who jumped on the psychosis bandwagon, right? But it's coming out now, as many things have, that the 6 feet rule, social distancing, was basically just made up, right? And you know and I know people who said it makes sense because it seems to make sense, right? Stay a certain distance away from people. It's harder to catch something. But apparently it came from nowhere. And a lot of this stuff did. They said certain things would work. They didn't work. They said certain things would do things that they didn't do. And they said certain people died because of this when they didn't die because of that. So now in Congress, revealed to the House Select Subcommittee on the Pandemic, the 6 feet apart recommendation championed by Fauci and other U.S. public health officials was likely not based on scientific data, said a Republican from Ohio, who's also a physician. It never struck me that 6 feet was particularly sensible in the context of mitigation, said the dean of Brown University School of Public Health, and served as Biden's COVID response coordinator for 15 months. I wish the CDC would just come out and say that this is not a major issue. Asked about a study in a Massachusetts school that found there was just 3 feet of distance between students result in similar case rates, Fauci said that same month that the CDC was very carefully reviewing the data and would likely update them. A top White House advisor in 2 presidential administrations, Fauci's transcribed interview before the House COVID panel revealed systemic failures in our public health system and shed light on serious procedural concerns. So he said all that to say, I don't know where it came from. And now the Oversight Committee actually released the transcripts and stuff, and this is much more simply put. Dr. Fauci's transcribed interview revealed systemic failures in our public health system and shed light on serious procedural concerns. We just heard that. It's clear that dissenting opinions were often not considered or suppressed completely. Should a future pandemic arise, America's response must be guided by the scientific facts and conclusive data. Now, that didn't happen. It's very strange to me that that does not happen. It's very strange to me that a group of scientists get together and, you know, something that's completely unscientific rises up and everybody's putting it all in place all over the country. Nobody says, you know, this doesn't mean anything. They just let it go ahead. You just let this happen to the country. Makes no sense. I would wager that it's kind of evil on the scale of, you know, godly to satanic. I'd say it's somewhere in the realm of a 5 or 6 that you let this sort of thing just happen. You know, it's not hurting anybody, but it, you know, maybe it was hurting people socially. You know, you have to stay away from people. This claim, once it's enforced by restaurants and businesses, it loses people money. It makes it so people can't interact. And maybe I'm in real time updating it to a 7 or 8 on the 5-alarm chili scale from The Simpsons. You just let this thing permeate without any evidence throughout the country and you don't even care. That's the way I see Dr. Fauci. Is all this stuff happens and he doesn't seem to really care. While we remain frustrated with Dr. Fauci's inability to recollect data that is important for our investigation, others we have spoken to do recall the facts. I appreciate Fauci's willingness to testify privately in front of the subcommittee and look forward to speaking with him at a further public hearing. But here are some of the main takeaways from day 2. Actually, let's start with day 1. We'll go in order here. But some of the key takeaways, and again, this is from the Oversight House Committee. And obviously, there's going to be a bias here, because why else would you call Fauci? Fauci claimed he did not recall pertinent information or conversations more than 100 times. He profusely defended his previous congressional testimony where he stated the NIH does not fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan. Lie. Just a lie. Just a lie. But he can't change what he said under oath because that would be lying, ironically. He repeatedly played semantics with the definition of gain of function in an attempt to avoid conceding that the NIH funded potentially dangerous research in China. It's all allegedly, you guys. Nothing here is true. Nothing about Fauci. I mean, that's what the stance you have to take, right? When you're a Democrat politician or you're one of these people involved shilling for the pharmaceutical companies and the government. Strange, right? But you basically just have to say that none of this is true. Because once one thing is true, the house of cards falls down. But you have to be like, no, they never knew about anything. Fauci, he would never fund anything to make money. He would never do anything just because he's told. He's been, like, this guy's been involved for 40-something years. At least 30. Since the AIDS pandemic. Or epidemic. Or transgenderism. I don't know. He's been involved for a very long time. At least 30 years. Fauci testified that he signed off on every foreign and domestic NIAID grant without reviewing the proposals. That's good. A 2020 email previously released by the subcommittee proved Fauci was aware of dangerous gain-of-function research occurring in Wuhan, China. Today, he backtracked by arguing he should have not stated that as fact. Okay, so we don't fund gain-of-function research. But then he said they were aware of dangerous gain-of-function research at the same place where they fund, but we don't fund it, you guys. We're aware of dangerous research, but we don't actually fund it. But I don't read the proposals and I give them grants, but we don't actually fund that. Is this making sense? Because it doesn't make sense. Again, we'll go over it one more time here. They said they do not fund gain-of-function research at Wuhan. But he also does not read the proposals that he grants. But also, he said they shouldn't have stated that they were not aware of gain-of-function research. They're giving them money. He's not reviewing what they're giving the money for. But also, we don't give the money for that thing that I agree exists. Insane, right? Now we're going to go on to the day 2 stuff. Fauci claimed that the 6 feet apart social distancing recommendation promoted by federal health officials was not likely based on any data. He characterized the development of the guidance by stating, it just sort of appeared. It just sort of appeared, but we went with it. He's completely full of shit. It's amazing. Dr. Fauci acknowledged that the lab leak hypothesis is not a conspiracy theory. This comes nearly 4 years after prompting the publication of the now infamous proximal origin paper that attempt to vilify and disprove the lab leak hypothesis. So before we said it was bad, Facebook and Twitter took all of it down, suspended you for sharing it, and now, oh yeah, it happened. Okay. Fauci admitted that America's vaccine mandates during the pandemic could increase vaccine hesitancy in the future. Previously, he advocated that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullish and they get vaccinated. So again, complete flip-flop. American universities approached Fauci. He advised them to impose vaccine mandates on their students. That's good. Dr. Fauci denies allegations that he was visited by the CIA during the pandemic or influenced the CIA's investigations. Fauci played semantics, of course that's subjective, with the definition of lab leaks in an attempt to cover up the inaccurate conclusions of that paper proximal origin. It is impossible for Dr. Fauci to defend the conclusion of this publication while simultaneously acknowledging that a lab leak is possible. So Dr. Fauci is 100% completely full of shit. Now, whether you can prove he specifically lied about one thing or the other, you can see in all these writings that he just says whatever. Okay, we funded them. I didn't pay attention to what we were funding, and I agree that that's happening there, but we didn't fund them for that. Okay, I pushed the 6 feet distance thing. It's very important that you do that. It's going to save lives. Well, I don't know where it came from, and probably there's no evidence to support it. And then the other stuff about, I'm not saying you have to do it. It's not a conspiracy theory, but then a couple years earlier, how dare you, it's dangerous. Like, he's completely full of shit. And all these things are so easy to tell. I get that there's people that don't pay attention to politics or don't pay attention to this stuff on the daily, which is fine. But for you to just imagine the place in your life where you have to be, where a guy comes on TV, and it's usually older people who would have experienced him during the AIDS pandemic. They would have seen him on TV talking in the early 90s and late 80s. A guy comes on TV, he makes all these wild claims about something, and you're so hardcore about it that you're just like saying rhyming things and saying he's the savior and you love this guy. It's really weird. And unless you're being paid to do it, The idea that you're just all of a sudden in love with a person from the medical establishment, so much so that you believe anything he says, I can't even begin to describe what that type of person looks like. Because from my perspective, it's these things aren't like I'm not a brilliant scholar sitting here looking at this stuff, right? At Ukraine and the border and Fauci and the lab theory and stuff. And you don't have to be overly intelligent. All you have to do is pay a little bit of attention. So I wonder, who are these people? Are they bot accounts? Are they people that are just so ideologically entrenched in what they believe that they'll go along with anything? But who are these people that were just like, Fauci's a brilliant guy, and, you know, as he updates the guidance, I'll follow along. But yet when the mask mandates come off, you no longer agree with it and you still wear it. It's like you only want to follow some sort of guidance when it is opposing somebody you dislike. As long as Republicans or conservatives aren't doing it, I'm going to do that. But now that there's not really any guidance on it, I'm going to rescind into the fears that I have and not follow that guidance. It's like it's almost as if whatever's easiest and whatever's psychologically the most gratifying. Instant gratification is a big problem a lot of people talk about. You know, it's very easy to condemn these people. It was very easy to, you know, just do what the government and social media told you and get jabbed. And it's very easy to just be like, well, I'm actually being the safe one. I'm smarter than you. I just want to know, if somebody could let me know, you know, like, do you know a person personally who's wearing a mask outside or anywhere still? Do you know a person personally who puts like the syringe things in their bio? What is that person like? Somebody please let me know.
Turn it up, Jordan.